Oh God, more Heinlein. Citizen of the Galaxy, published in 1957, was one of Heinlein's later Christmas juveniles. That is significant, remember, as we go along. This is a book for children. The book starts on a remote planet where a young boy, Thorby, is up for sale on a slave auction. With little interest from the market, he is eventually bought by Baslim the Cripple, a professional beggar who is later revealed to be a spy. After Baslim commits suicide to avoid capture, Thorby leaves the planet with a group of free traders. These are nomadic spacefarers who may have been in part one of the influences for the TV series Firefly. Thorby is then, per Baslim's instructions, transferred to a ship belonging to the Terran hegemony, where his true identity comes to light. Thorby is heir, presumed dead, to a huge corporate conglomerate on Earth. He considers this company might be involved in the slave trade, which would be illegal, and he takes over after some legal wrangling. The book ends with him setting up Lucius, one of his scientists, to help get technology to the traders to help them fight slavers. He's not quite able to prove his own company's involvement, or because of corporate laws, do anything else about it. The end. Apparently, in the late 1950s, there was a big young adult market for books about future corporate laws. Citizen of the Galaxy is actually a rare thing in that it seems at times like Heinlein is actually having some fun. Not a lot, but occasional lines like those on screen make this slightly less of a trudge than most of his other books. The scene where Thorby and the free traders are literally trading insults is quite fun, but against it all, this is a book about slavery. Though the traders make Thorby welcome, it's soon clear that their society, which Heinlein typically labours over ad nauseum, also sees humans as a commodity. This book is very episodic. Thorby learns about the Sargani society under Baslim. He escapes from there to the ship Sizu, where he learns about the free traders, which is only interrupted by him learning about a computer, which is as riveting as reading a manual for Windows 95. He leaves them to join a human ship that teaches him their ways, being interrupted only by being sent to Earth to learn about business law. The early section made this feel like it might be a fun, boys' own adventure type book, particularly the first scene where a Sindonian aristocrat verbally spars with the foppish slave seller. But Heinlein is a 1950s school teacher, and fun would just land you in detention where, I assume, you're punished by having to read more Heinlein. Thorby is too busy being educated about uninteresting minutiae to learn anything about himself. So it is hard to describe this as a Bildungsroman, more like a series of lectures. The travels through space would be much more interesting if something was happening, but there just isn't. Bar one incident where Thorby programs a computer to shoot a pirate ship. It's all about as exciting as watching a child being transferred from one school to another, complete with long passages about the paperwork involved. This is a 262-page edition, and on page 208, when Thorby returned home and his regent tried a little too hard to get him to sign some paperwork, I got the feeling that something was amiss. You expect Heinlein then to tie these threads together, that the regent, his uncle Jack, was responsible for the raid that killed his parents and ended up with Thorby being a slave, that he is still involved in the illegal running of slaves. In a young adult novel, a good one anyway, you would expect Thorby to have learned something in his travels through space, his interactions with the many different cultures, something to help him put two and two together and solve the problem. It just doesn't happen. Instead, we get 40 pages of legalese, a fair amount of corporate wrangling, and a lot of paper shuffling. And that's not just me looking for a bin to put this book in. It's the many reports that Thorby reads, and the ones that are kept from him. Yes, that is as exciting as the ending gets. This book is half the size of Friday, so it's half as bad, I guess. George Lucas got torn apart for making a kids' movie about slavery and space politics. Heinlein's kids' book is about slavery and corporate politics. When Thorby is with the slave traders, he learns they have 2,000 words for their relatives. It's about here that you start to think, what is the point of any of this? But there isn't one. Thorby goes from one group to another, from Baslim to Captain Kraus to the Terran military to home in the boardroom. He learns to never give up. But not in this book. Baslim observes on the book's second page that Thorby has been whipped and that he remains defiant. The various episodes of Thorby's travels, note I don't call them adventures, can be skipped or ignored. They're episodic enough to be irrelevant to each other. In conclusion, it's another Heinlein book, and as such, it's not worth reading. But if you're determined, I'll just warn you. If you're triggered by slavery, don't read this. If you're triggered by child abuse, don't read this. If you're triggered by even spanking a child, don't read this. If you're triggered by women being treated as a commodity, don't read this. If you're triggered by this happening in a matriarchal society, don't read this. But even worse than any of that, if you're bored by minor ethnographic studies of mostly uninteresting fictional cultures or corporate politics, or books that just end without a proper resolution, don't read this. If the talk of corporate law and boardroom wrangling has seemed interesting to you, then I'd recommend you anything by John Grisham. I'd recommend this book be recycled. Thank you for listening to my review of Citizen of the Galaxy by Robert Heinlein. There are buttons down below for commenting, for liking or not. All those things are provided to you for free by YouTube, so you may as well take advantage of them. I'll see you on the next one.